So thank you, obviously, for coming here today. What we wanted to talk to you about is Sarah Schleider. She died absolutely and unnecessarily at the hands of Grand Villa Delray East. There was a complete lack of training, protections, and basic cleanliness at the facility. And as a result of that, she passed away. But more importantly, we have found through our investigation that not only was Sarah Schleider someone who was a victim of negligence at this facility, but over 40 people at this same facility contracted COVID-19 between staff and patients, and over 10 of the people that were there at this facility died as a result of COVID-19. The Agency for Healthcare Administration came into this facility and found that they had absolutely no protections in place. There was a complete lack of training, so much to the extent that in one of the training sessions, only 8 people out of 81 attended the training. They were keeping dirty linens, COVID linens from patients that had been diagnosed with COVID, next to clean linens within the facility. And the family was getting absolutely no information from this facility as it was occurring. All of this was happening while the facility was telling the families of these people, trust us. Trust us to take care of the most vulnerable in this state. Trust us to take care of your mothers, your fathers, and your loved ones. And it was a complete lack of betrayal by this facility on behalf of these patients and families. And it's for that reason that we filed suit against Grand Villa of Delray East. What's also important about this story is that at the same time that we're fighting on behalf of these families as a result of negligent facilities like Grand Villa of Delray East, right now in your Senate in Tallahassee, they're trying to pass a bill to take these rights away from patients and patients' families. Mr. Goldenfarb is going to talk about that Senate bill, but what's important to remember is that your voices need to be heard on these issues. You need to be heard and tell the legislature to stop taking away your rights. So with that, we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
You called, in the lawsuit, you called this a facility a catastrophe of epic proportions. What do you mean by that?
This was one of the worst disasters of all of the nursing home facilities in the state of Florida. I've given only a few examples. One of the worst is they had COVID patients, known COVID patients, where they're utilizing all of their linens and putting them right next to the laundry with clean patient laundry. They weren't training personnel on how to use personal protective devices. They weren't prompting residents to use personal protective devices. An administrator came in from the agency and during their investigation found that patients weren't wearing masks. Staff weren't wearing masks. The facility wasn't doing temperature checks. They interviewed a number of not only residents, but more importantly, staff who admitted that they weren't properly using masks, that they weren't trained how to properly use masks, that they were cleaning the rooms of COVID-positive patients with mops and cloths, and then using the same mops and cloths for non-COVID positive patients. They completely ignored not only CDC guidelines, but the state of Florida guidelines, the Agency for Healthcare Administration guidelines. This is one of the worst examples of negligence I think I've ever seen at a single nursing home in the state of Florida during a national catastrophe.
Are you saying that her death was preventable?
Her death was 100% preventable. This was a woman that was under the care of a facility that the family trusted. She had Alzheimer's. She needed full-time care, but otherwise she was a healthy older woman who the family would visit on regular occasion until COVID hit. And at that point, when they asked if they could come see, they said, no, don't worry, we're taking care of your mother. When now we learn that that was just absolute lies.
What should they have done then to prevent her death?
This facility should have followed basic protocols set in place by the CDC and the agencies for healthcare administration, and frankly, the governor's executive orders. And they didn't even do that. They should have utilized personal protective equipment. They should have had residents wear masks. They should have had staff wear masks. They should have been doing temperature checks. They should have been keeping clean laundry away from COVID positive laundry. They should have been cleaning rooms on a more regular basis. They shouldn't be reusing COVID mops and COVID cloths to clean rooms of patients that weren't COVID positive. They should have been noting in the transition rooms when patients would come back from hospitals after a bout of COVID. They weren't even noting that on the rooms, on some of the rooms that these patients were coming back COVID positive, and now they're mixing them in with non-COVID positive patients at the facility.
How old was she when she died?
81.
81 years old at her time of death. You can see by our complaint that Ms. Schleider died of COVID-19. That was clear in her death certificate, and it's attached to our complaint, and we wanted to make it clear.
Do you think the facility should be shut down?
This is just one, by the way, of 18 separate facilities that are run by the same organization. There are grand villas throughout the state of Florida. And we found through our investigation that not only this facility has been sanctioned, but others throughout the state have fell below what we believe is an acceptable standard of care, and frankly, what the state believes is an acceptable standard of care for keeping residents safe. So I think that not only this facility should be shut down, but I think all of Grand Villa facilities shouldn't be in business until they clean up their act.
In your investigation, did you find, was this a certain amount of time this type of behavior has gone on, or is this type of behavior still going on today?
Good question. Not only did our investigation find that this facility had been falling below what was required by facilities in the state since the inception of the COVID determination, but the agency of healthcare administration for the state of Florida found that from the get-go, from the beginning of the COVID disaster, that they were falling below the standard of care, that they were allowing staff to come in without masks, they were allowing staff to come in without temperature checks. That wasn't just our determination. That is the state agency's determination that this problem went as far back as March and April of this year. And Ms. Schleider died as a result of a COVID diagnosis that she got in the memory care unit in May of this last year. So their negligence has gone all the way back to the inception of the COVID catastrophe.
Is it still happening today though, or did someone step in and make changes, or that you've seen?
The agency filed a formal complaint against this facility, the state agency. But unfortunately, our enforcement methods in the state of Florida are incredibly low. And the only thing they were fined was $5,000. That's it. Over 40 positive cases in this one facility, over 10 deaths at the time that the agency investigated, and they got fined $5,000. That's all.
And I'm sorry, what agency was that and when was that?
It's the State Agency for Healthcare Administration, based out of Tallahassee, and the State Agency for Healthcare Administration, sometimes referred to as ACA, oversees all healthcare in this state.
And when was that fine?
That fine went into place July 15 of 2020.
So about a month after Ms. Schneider passed.
Correct.
So you're saying all these people were dying in there, but they didn't tell any of the loved ones that, hey, we've had 40 people develop this virus and 10 deaths. They didn't tell any of that to the relatives of folks who live there?
I'm going to let Howard tell it, how he found out.
Okay.
And I ask that you ask Howard, her son, how he found out what was going on at this facility. You'll be astounded.
So
And the answer is yes. The administration completely ignored this family.
But you're saying they didn't tell anyone who had loved ones in there, like they didn't send out a note saying, by the way, we want everyone to be aware.
They eventually, after the pressure from the healthcare administration they released a video finally admitting that they had a COVID positive patient that they found. But that wasn't until after the agency had come in and all of this had occurred. They finally released a video, I think, on YouTube or something like that. But there were no direct calls, and none of the other patients' families got any direct attention as to what was happening. So I want to turn it over for a minute because I do want Mr. Goldenfarb to talk about Senate Bill 74, which I think is incredibly important to this issue. And then I want you to please speak with the family about their feelings on this one. Yeah, you want to?
That's good.
Yep, sure.
Sorry, thank you. It's just easier.
Is it close
Yeah,
enough?
definitely. Easier. You guess that?
Oh, yeah.
Hi, my name is Craig Goldenfarb, and I'm the owner of the law firm here. Since the beginning of my career 25 years ago, I've been trying to protect the rights of our most vulnerable population, which is the people in nursing homes and assisted living facilities in Florida. And this is one of the most egregious violations of how we trust these places to take care of our loved ones that I've ever seen. Unfortunately, as this pandemic goes on, there's a bill in the Senate in Tallahassee that has 3 portions to it that are particularly sad. The first portion is that it gives blanket immunity to all healthcare providers having anything to do with COVID at all. So what that means is no matter how poorly someone is treated by a healthcare provider, including nursing homes, you can't bring any cause of action against them. There's hardly anything in our justice system currently where an entire industry has blanket immunity. In other words, you can't even try to sue them. The second portion of it is that it shortens what's called a statute of limitation, which is the time at which you must file a lawsuit, from what's normally 4 years in Florida to 1 year. That takes away the rights of our citizens to get justice by shortening that time, because sometimes a family is grieving for an extended period of time and they don't even think about justice until it's too late. So reducing a statute of limitations from 4 years to 1 year in Florida is also a real attempt to take away the rights of Florida citizens. And the third part of the bill that's particularly disturbing is that it's retroactive. Most bills take effect, I guess, on July 1st, after they're passed. But in this case, the bill has been written to be retroactive to anything that happened in the past. So anything that happened back in March or February of 2020 when COVID started is going to be covered by this bill. Now, the 3 parts of this bill, blanket immunity, the reduction of the statute of limitations, and the retroactivity, show me 2 things about our legislature. The first thing is that the legislature has decided that they don't trust the citizens of Florida to be able to sit in our justice system and judge whether a facility such as a nursing home has violated the standard of care. The legislature is clearly saying we don't trust the citizens. We want to take that power away from the citizens. And the second is that we want to take away the rights of family members to access the justice system when something has gone wrong. These 2 things, which is trusting Florida citizens and taking away the rights of Florida citizens, are 2 things that are fundamental to our justice system here in the United States. And for the people in Tallahassee during this crisis to basically put forth a law that is unconstitutional on many grounds is a real unfortunate choice, that they don't trust the citizens of Florida and they want to take away the rights of citizens in Florida. And that's on in the Senate right now in Tallahassee.
So this lawsuit, you're filing a lawsuit today, if they pass the bill, then is this lawsuit thrown out?
That's possible. If this lawsuit, which is filed today, is subject to that bill that may pass, then there's going to be a big fight as to whether it is retroactive, and if it is retroactive, this lawsuit may be thrown out.